Hey everyone, week 5, here we are, Ashton and I, talking about leveling up the enablement team, and today we're talking about Ashton's passion, the sales enablement or revenue enablement trainer. Ashton, what's up? How's it going?
I cannot believe it's been 5, and I'm like so excited. I've been looking forward to this call all day. I'm passionate about revenue training because it's where I came from. I was a trainer before I joined Ada and Enablement now, and I just remember thinking that like training was enablement, and really learning that like it's not. It's a huge component, and you learn so much there, and like it can be similar if you're doing more than training at your company. Yeah. But I'm pretty excited to talk about it today.
Let's go. Episode 5. Let's rock and roll. All right, so here we are, the sales or revenue enablement trainer position on your enablement team. We're going to talk today. Again, we're going to cover these through every session, but what is that role? What does it look like? Where does it fit into your structure? When should you hire this role? What skill set or experience? And then like the interviewing side. And let's flip it on the reverb for those managers of what do you actually want to look at when you're hiring for a sales enablement trainer. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about what it is and what it isn't. Ashton, you want to take it away first, since this is your bread and butter.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I think when you're a trainer, right, you're doing a lot of things that pertain to enablement. You're really responsible for upskilling a team and helping get them from, skill to behavior. So you're looping in some of the knowledge gaps, but you're really focused on that like practice, engaging training, and translating that to behavior, sometimes the coaching aspect of it, and facilitation becomes a really big part of that role. And so you might be designing a live training really regularly and facilitating that, and then facilitating those role plays, doing those one-to-one coaching later. But I think you function really at that like skill adoption level and behavioral level. And it's super fun because you're doing all the fun stuff, right? You just stand in front of everybody. You get to have fun. You get to do all the gamification. You're running that like enablement session, and you're consistently kind of the expert in that thing. Oftentimes we see trainers really focused on specifically like the sales aspect, or you'll have a trainer that's focused on product. You get to almost be like a subject matter expert in the field that you train in within a company. Or we see trainers be really a facilitation expert. So regardless of subject matter, they're the ones who are leading it because they can engage everyone, they can help it stick, and they really know how to design those activities within that session to drive adoption of the team.
100%. And I think one crucial part that a lot of trainers miss the mark on when they're talking about this, and I know that I look for this when I'm talking to trainer candidates as well too, but it's the evaluation piece. How do we take what we've actually done and evaluate to prove that your job has actually been successful and you've actually implemented what you set out to do? I think one of the easiest things to do, I swear up and down by this model. A lot of people use it. It's the ADDIE model. Yep. That is basically your repetitive steps for your entire job. And it's so great. If you don't know what it is, look it up, go by it, do it, live by it.
Yeah, it's an instructional design model, right? That gives you the framework to make sure that you're looking at impact.
Yes.
But I think with training, the piece that's like difficult, I'll explain actually this way. When I was a sales trainer, my job was to be trainer and coach. In that role, I also owned onboarding and a bunch of other things, but my job wasn't necessarily to look at the ramp of my team or to report back to my CEO on the business outcomes in the same way. My accountability was different. My role was to drive these really engaging and fun sessions that were like the hype of the company, that led to our sales culture being adopted, and in turn supporting the translation into behaviors. On a weekly basis, I would meet with my managers and we talk about what was the challenge, and my solution provided was always a training. And I think that that's the difference, right? In enablement, my solution might be manager upskilling. My solution might be, a course or a program. My solution might be a training, but But usually if you're doing change management, right, like there's the kickoff training, there's the coaching role play, there's the
Yep.
program and the asynchronous learning that goes with that. There's also like, you know, how we check it later. Like there's a bunch of other things like the demo, the product enablement. There's a bunch of different things that might come into the enablement of that change or that go to market or whatever it is. But as a trainer, I was focused exclusively on like, what could I do when I had the whole team in a room or on a Zoom call? And what can I make sure that they left with? And then how did I empower managers to follow up and reinforce? Because I got to be the one and done and then go, hey, managers, like, did it stick? If it didn't, what can I do to help you? And then I'd be on to the next. I got to actually like just build and build and build. And that was so, so fun.
So what advice would you give to people the way that you evaluated your success? Like as a sales trainer, how did you evaluate success and how does that play an impact into the role itself?
Yeah. So I think you want to ask there, like, what is the company's goals? For this company, their culture was really important. And as a trainer, I was, yes, responsible for getting them to be more successful, but truly managers owned their performance. My job was to really be like a methodology carrier and a culture carrier to make sure that like the way we talk to our customers is the way that we should be talking to our customers, that they feel the way they should. And that like, it's fun to work here. I functioned in such a unique way where salespeople want development in order to stay at their companies, right? And I was in-house to help develop them. They got coaching from us. They learned to be their best selves and go to other places. So we measured our success in different ways. I would say as a trainer though, your NPS internally is pretty important, right? Like a good training has two things. Like, yes, we always say the happiness surveys and enablement are not what we want, but in training, people having a great time and being engaged and having that credibility that when you run a training, people come and they participate is crucial, right? If you're dry and you're flat and people don't want to come to your trainings, you're probably not doing so great. And then there's the ability that we know they don't remember everything from that session, but are you able to design a training that has people leave with like that one outcome or that one goal that they can practice on? And can you transfer then that responsibility over to your managers and say, how do I work with you or how do I coach? Whether you're taking on the coaching role or not, like maybe you are, maybe your managers are, to ensure that follow-up. Now, I'll say in a lot of companies outside of tech, they don't have enablement. And the trainer is doing all of those enablement things. And so I want to really caveat this with your title might be trainer and you're doing enablement. That is very true and happens very often. Your title might be enablement and you might be doing training. And I think it's important that we say that.
Yeah, no, very good clarity. I do love the fact that you talked about engagement. I think that's one of the things that is very underrated when it comes down to a sales trainer. They have to be a charismatic. Thank you. Wow. Woo. Yeah, I don't know why I can't say that word, but yes.
End of the day, it was a mouthful. I get it.
Anyways, yes, they need to be that. And I think it's huge because a lot of people just sit there and they just want to I've seen trainers that are out there and they're just the repetitive, like you said, dry, monotone, just regurgitating the information. That's no way to get the commitment and the credibility. That's another piece that you touched on. And I think as a trainer, you almost need to be one of the most credible people on the team because you're the ones that are continuing to deliver those information. And I love that you really dove in and just said, you're the culture carrier. Yeah. I never have seen it that way. And I think that that's huge. I think it's a great way to start looking at that trainer role and really start developing to carry the mission and vision basically of the company and the culture.
And I also think of it this way, right? Like, how I knew I wanted to be enablement and not in training was actually watching. I have a friend who trains, and like the way that she lights up when she is in front of a team, the way that she is energized by facilitating every day. If all she could do every day was facilitate a session and watch people have aha moments in those sessions, like that is the thing that she loves doing, and she's so good at it.
That's great.
And I remember being like, I like training. I like facilitating. When it goes well, it feels great, but I'm tired after sometimes. If I had to, run onboarding every single like day of my life, I'd be really drained. But there are people who like, that's the thing that like lights them up, and you see that. And I don't know how to capture that or really put this into words because like we are talking about jobs and there are outcomes, so we'll get there. But on the intangible level, you see that when someone loves that role. You just, it's That's why they all become consultants. That's why they leave into facilitation. That's why being a facilitator and coach is a true job, or a trainer goes up to a methodology manager for a reason. Like, it's a different career track than enablement if that is the place that sparks you. And I think it's important that we differentiate there. You're not stuck in training and then there's nowhere else to go. It's just that you have to understand the trajectory.
100%. Let's talk about, where does the trainer fit in to the entire like enablement org? Where are they, like one of the first hires that we do? Is it one of the last hires? Is it more of a senior title that we want to continue to develop, or where does it fit? Let's go.
I mean, I think it really depends on the organization, right? Like, I was at a company that was quite aged. They had a really good idea of what their stuff should look like. And so they hired trainers because they needed that tactical approach to working with reps and driving outcomes in that way, right? I was tied to the attainment of my team, similar to an enablement, but in a different way. It was the adoption of change, right? Like at every time we train something, like I had to measure, like, did they adopt it? Are they actually doing it? How much are they adhering to our sales process and to like the words they learned? And also my ability to be flexible and reactive. How fast am I spinning up a training that's impactful? I remember I was at a company where we had a whole referral strategy where we were like, hey, we need reps to start asking prospects for referrals now. And I had like a 2-week turnaround to like build a training, roll it out, support managers and go, here's how we're measuring that. Like my managers brought that to me and I had to build that into a training, right? And so there's that ability to also create the training that comes and the impacts of those. You're still going to tie them to business outcomes like enablement. You're still going to be looking at, did that drive an impact? But I would say that you probably don't own designing what that impact is. You probably don't own the outcome as much. You own the culture piece, the effectiveness of that training, and that people left with the right thing and how they appreciate it, especially in onboarding, right? Where the goal is to get everyone like jazzed about stuff.
Right.
But you kind of own creating that energy. Where it fits though, what I say for a company is, I mean, for my team, I want that passionate person, right? I'm going to hire someone who like, all I want to do every day is this. And I'm going to have a revenue trainer for product because they're obsessed with our product and they have a knack for making complex simple, right? Yes. And I'm probably going to hire one for salescraft who really wants to spend that time coaching on, discovery and objection handling and can listen to calls all day and do that piece. But sometimes you have managers who do that, right? And so whether you hire a trainer or enablement really depends on, is your team all centralized where training versus asynchronous learning is priority and impactful and you can all be in a room? Great. Is facilitation the norm, right? Is it that everything is run that way always and that's actually how your team learns best? Is it that your managers are really able to design what they need and say what they need and coach, but they just need really help with like building that session and that engaging spot and that strategy of like a 4-week training program, for example? It's going to depend on what type of expertise you need based on the leadership team you have in place, the culture of your learners and like how you learn at the organization and what you're looking for, right? Because like training can drive additional outcomes than just sales. We partnered with people a lot, right? For change management, to make things fun, to be face of some stuff.
I love that. Spot on. I think, oh my God, I just like had a complete brain freeze. Wow. I am like 0 for 2 today. It's great. No, that's good. I think that's exactly right. I think one of the big things that I also look for in that trainer, and you really hit on this, but is that adaptable and reactive mindset, especially now living in a digital world and very COVID central. Like, I hate to say that like, we're going to live in this forever, but who knows where business is going, through this. I'm now in a remote position. That's my closest employee or my closest coworker is probably about 300, miles away.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, we have to be adaptable and reactive to those different environmental changes that are happening as well. So somebody that knows how to do or research different methodologies or ways to connect and engage with the people over a digital or, in person, distantly, practice. So tons of different aspects there. That's exactly what I was going to say, but I totally forgot the first time. So, all right. So we kind of hit on a lot of these already, but that skill set, charismatic, we want to make sure that they're adaptable. They know how to, structure and spin up that self-motivator, that was implied on a lot of this as well too. What additional skill sets or experience do you feel that you needed while you were a sales trainer as well too?
For sure. I would say understanding of adult learning theory, you must understand how adults need to learn because they need to be part of the solution. They need to come to things on their own. Facilitation. So that is like a true skill that people learn and refine over time, how to pull things out of people and align a group. That facilitation is critical. There's also training design. So the ability to actually design and have a run of show for every training. Yes. I want to say it's a lot like showbiz, right? You got to know how to like write the script, have the production value, engage the people, and evaluate if they had a great time. It's similar with training. And then there's also an element here of great trainers know how to teach training while they do it. So like their managers become better trainers because they're around. They support with how you should run and structure something for the team to really get it. The ability to really pull passion out of people and pull their engagement and be okay with that, like forcing it, right? That like crickets in the room is normal, right. Facilitating that is okay. I would also say that in this day and age, knowing how to really put on a great virtual show, so virtual training becomes so critical. Similar to how we say virtual selling, like you have an audience, how are you manipulating things to make it engaging? How are you using tools and technology to like replace some of that in-person, charisma we would have or we would get? And then also communication becomes really important. Repeating back, simplifying ideas, like clarifying points, keeping people on time, keeping people on track, knowing when to table a question for a parking lot versus when to keep it going. I think there's a lot that goes into that. I would also say that some companies use their trainers as partial enablement, where they're also designing the asynchronous portion of that training. And so understanding the full story of from first kickoff session or live session to asynchronous and like almost storyboarding that flow for the team and knowing how to design that learning solution is pretty important as well.
Yeah, spot on. I can't even add any more. I think that's exactly right. Love it. All right. Where do you want to go first? Are we going to hire or are we going to interview?
Ooh, let's go with hire because I think interview is like, we did interview last time.
Perfect. Okay, cool. I want to hire. What am I looking for? Kind of talked about some of these traits as well too, but let's break it down.
Yeah. So I think it's important to distinguish between what type of trainer you're looking for. Not all trainers are created equal, what the outcomes you want them to drive, and what type of team they're going to be facing. Mm-hmm. So like for me, if I'm looking for a technical trainer, I want to look for someone who has technical expertise, like a solutions consultant who has to present regularly to a customer and teach them, or customer success background, right? Where adoption of tools becomes key. Versus a sales trainer where I'm going to be looking for a methodology certification, facilitation certification, ideally some type of adult learning in their background. And I would say that they've done it before. Ideally, they have recording, or I can see their work. They're willing to facilitate a training for me. When I had to interview as a trainer, I had to actually build and run a training where everyone in that room had to leave with a tangible, actionable skill. That is critical. I need to be able to see that. So if I'm interviewing, I want to see what I'm getting ahead of time, right?
Yeah, that's definitely.
If I'm hiring, I want to see how are you engaging the people here? How are you strategically adapting in that meeting to engage the people that need to be engaged? Are you consistently kind of driving points home and guiding us along properly? It's really funny because it sounds so much like running a sales meeting, and I wish I could describe it better because it's different. But helping people kind of think through it. And I want to see that. I want to see you help me get to an idea and outcome in a meeting.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think if we literally are looking for people to be our trainers and to send the message that we're looking for, they have got to be that person that reads word for word. And so I understand what happened on the first page all the way down to the last page. You're exactly right. Like it has to be that narrow and that simplistic. To where if I don't understand it and you do, how do I end up getting that, that insight as well to be on that same page?
I think another piece about facilitation, right, is you want to see, they have to be able to also pick up if people aren't getting it.
Yes.
And that's why if I'm interviewing, I want them to run a training for me. I want them to see if we're disengaged. I want to see how they pivot if we're not, like, are they able to get us back on track? Because that's going to happen, especially in the larger groups. And just, when you're looking for a trainer, you almost want to scenario them that like, if I gave you this scenario versus that scenario, see what types of trainings they're excited by versus not. So you can get a feel for like, what type of person are you getting? Like, are they more interested in the asynchronous learning and they're really passionate about that, but they're good at kicking off those projects because they're excited about what they built?
Yes.
Or are you someone who like, they really believe in that hands-on training and therefore they're lacking in the fact that like people aren't going to leave that hands-on training ready to go and they're missing steps. But you want to know, no candidate is perfect. You just want to know what you're getting, and is that what you need in order to be successful for your team? And also I would say there's a level of seniority needed, just a professionalism where like everyone does look to the trainer for how they need to present. And it's unfortunate, but it's a burden that you're going to carry, where like their ability to maintain professionalism, to communicate clearly, to present well, to be energetic on a call, like that should be the glowing example of what you want everyone in your company to manage a meeting like. And so you want to see that in that interview.
Spot on. Yes. I love this. All right. I am not interviewing now, but if I was to interview for a sales trainer position, how do I showcase my work? How do I really intrigue my employer besides obviously the cover letter and possibly portfolio? But how else could I really stand out as that professional trainer for them?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when I became a trainer, I wasn't a trainer before, and I got to see kind of the interview process from the other side and what that felt like. And afterwards, they shared with me kind of the search and what that looked like and what went into it. Some of the things that really stood out for candidates are, teaching experience, whether it's teaching English as a second language, whether it's teaching, it can be teaching children, it's fine, teaching adults, but like if you have direct teaching experience, like that's great. I would also say proactive learning and upskilling for me. So I like to see that if someone hasn't done this before, like, are they actively taking a course in adult learning? Are they, pursuing opportunities to facilitate? Can they talk to me about being part of a community? Because just because someone doesn't do it for work doesn't mean they're not doing it in their own time in other ways.
Right.
I also want to hear why, right? So like, tell us why you want to be a trainer, because that's a really specific, I treat it like a craft, right? Like that is like hiring someone who is skilled at a specific skill, like learning design, right? You can go really narrow into that as a trainer or facilitator, like you're quite narrow into that as well. And so you have to have a deep passion for what you're training. So I often want to see that they are really excited to be a subject matter expert in something, but also really excited to learn and adapt. So either if someone who's just like passionate about facilitation and is like absorbing all the time new information and building these creative trainings, and that's cool. Or, you have a specialist who's like, no, like sales is my thing. This is what I know how to teach people. And I'm so excited to do that any which way. And they come with almost like an out of the box. So I would say you want to showcase what type of trainer you are and how you add value to that company. You also want to be focused on the business outcome. So like, while we know that the performance value and production value of a training and the flow from a learner perspective is important, you're still going to be accountable to some business outcomes. And so if you're interviewing, like, ask about what they hope training's going to accomplish. Because I think it's also important that you clarify, do they have the right goals for training, right? Are they hiring a trainer when they in fact need something else? Or are they hiring a trainer for like really what you want to do and what you're gonna be qualified for? Similar to enablement. I don't think they're that far apart in how you interview and look for a role.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's that's spot on. I was actually thinking, I watched a sales trainer interview, and it was a tip I gave another enablement manager when we were talking about times. And I made them, they were interviewing for a trainer position, and I threw this at them, and it made me think about it when you were talking about adaptive and reactive, is they gave them the prompt to do the presentation, but during that, in the midway of the presentation, they cut him off because obviously they were succeeding. They ended up making him do an impromptu speech on the fly, had 5 minutes to prepare it, and how did he handle that whole section? And I think that is a great way. Like, yes, that is a brutal interview. Like, I would be so livid if that hit me. But it's a great way to show how intuitive those trainers can be.
I mean, that's the skill set though, right?
Yes,
so like, exactly. If that's not your skill set, like, you should be excited. I'd be thrilled if you were like, cut me off and I'm like, ooh, we're pivoting. Yeah. That's great. Right. Like, I get it. But if that's not your skill set, that'll also highlight it. And that's the point of the interview. I'd say people who are really awesome at this often go above and beyond. Like, I had people like send me videos of like, here's my training style. And so I'm going to teach you X, right? Or, just be proactive in their outreach. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like that when someone is a great facilitator, they know it and they're super excited to show it, if that makes sense, or great trainer.
Yeah.
I'd also say if you're interviewing, being prepared for feedback. So one of the things that trainers that is important for a trainer that I think we missed earlier is like, sometimes in a training, a rep will straight up say this training sucks, or you're wrong, or I don't agree. And like, how do they handle that? And so in the interview process, you want to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. So many good tips and tricks in here, especially as a trainer. Like, I think it's one of those jobs that still is hugely needed, and a lot of people are using them in different ways. So be creative. Again, adaptable, reactive, definitely needed. And most importantly, have that credible voice, have that credible personality, and really just nail it home with your team. I think that is huge, especially as you're getting that training role. Ashton, any last minute tips, tricks, thoughts, anything like that?
I would just say that I think it's really important in enablement that we have respect for training. I think sometimes we treat training like it's, what you do before you get into enablement, when in fact, like, they're two very different career paths. And like, it's a craft when someone is a true trainer and facilitator. And I'm always just thrilled when you see it go well. Not to say that enablers don't have to have those skills, but it's not 100% of your job, and it's different when it is. So if this is what you want to do, like, it's okay, go do it, go chase it, because it is a true career path and there's lots of growth in it.
100%. That is so true. Yes. Guys, week 5, we talked about that trainer role. Next time, we are talking about that enablement lead position. We want to make sure that we're handling that well. I am taking a week off for some R&R, but Ashton and I will be back. Episode 6 coming at you soon.